And for the first time, I was truly challenged. And not everybody can say that, because some people have gone through challenges before they got to vet school. But for me, it was my first greatest challenge. For me, it was a lot of just remembering that as much as I love vet medicine, as much as how strong my passion is for it, I knew that there's more in the world besides the vet school and besides that grade and everything like that. And so I needed to remind myself that I was going to be okay no matter what happened. But living is a feeling, and it means to enjoy all the moments. So you can find peace in the bad moments and joy in the good ones. And it's not, related to X, Y, and Z. You're going to be okay, whatever you go through. But always remember that you can be so much more than just okay. And that well-being and mindfulness and self-care is going to enrich your life in the best possible way. And take it from me, and take it from anybody else who has achieved true well-being, that once you catch that feeling, you're never going to want to let it go. And that's what keeps people motivated.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Get MotiVETed's Exploratory, where we explore all things related to veterinary well-being. And we're so excited to have all of our listeners with us today. And today it's actually really, really cool because we have a very special guest. We have Miss Julianna, and I'm going to be interviewing her and asking her a few questions about veterinary well-being and what kind of drives her to want to be a veterinary professional and a veterinarian. And so with that being said, Julianna, how are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I am doing fantastic, or better than I deserve, as Dave Ramsey would say. And I'm really excited about this conversation. This is an opportunity for me to know you a little better, even though we've been, working with each other over the summer. It's still an opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into who Julianna is and just find out some more things. So I'm really excited about that. Would you like to go ahead and just tell everyone a little bit about yourself, where you're from, what school you're at, what year you are?
Sure. Like you said, I'm Julianna. I am from Woodbury, Connecticut. And if you're not sure, that is in the East Coast, the New England area, where all the snowstorms usually happen. So I've been there most of my life. I was actually adopted from China, so I can't say born and raised, but I've been here ever since I was little, and I love my parents to death. We live in a little, small little town. I have a cat and a dog. Both of them are rescues, and I can talk about how I grew up with animals later, but I went to school here, elementary through high school, and then I stayed here in Connecticut and I commuted to my undergraduate, which was great because I saved a lot of money, and it was still a great school. And then in my last year, I applied to several colleges, and I got accepted to Purdue University. So I made my way over to Indiana for their College of Veterinary Medicine. And as of this point, I've just finished my first year of vet school. So I will be on to my second year in just about a week now.
Wow, that's really exciting. And, I can't wait to hear a little bit more about, that story and what sort of drove you to get into veterinary medicine. But before we get there, before we get into why you want to be a veterinarian and, why well-being means so much to you, I remember from your application that you submitted something about billiards and pool. Are you a pool shooter?
They call me the pool shark, yes. I'm still a learner. I always have been. But in my last year of undergrad, I kind of needed an outlet. If I look back on it now, that's kind of what it was. And pool and ping pong are the two games, the biggest games that we had at our school. And I started to play pool, and I just wanted to get better and better and better. And I was fortunate enough to have a great group of people around me who both challenged me and taught me. And so I learned a lot, and I was one of the few girls there who could kind of hold their own, against the guys, because there was a lot of guys that played. And then when it came to Purdue, they have they have a whole billiards room, and their tables are so much nicer. But they have a whole room full of pool tables across from the bowling alley. And actually, when I had my interview, it really was an outlet, because when I had my interview, my friend came with me, who was not in vet med, but she came with me for moral support in the January. And I was so nervous the night before the interview day, and I was just looking for something to do, and she found out there was a billiards room, and she's like, if you want to go, we'll go. And so I went down there and I played pool to just kind of let myself de-stress. So it's always been something that I really enjoy doing on my off time. And yeah, so then I came to Purdue and I actually joined the billiards team. I am also the only female on the billiards team.
Whoa.
But it's been a lot of fun, and they're also, they're all great players. And so it's been a lot of fun learning from them. I got to travel with them a couple times. I don't have a whole lot of free time, obviously, in vet school with my classes and everything, but there were a couple times that I traveled to Indy, and I was able to play a couple of tournaments. So it was a lot of fun.
Wow, that is so cool. Well, first and foremost, I do play ping pong as well. I suck at pool, but I can probably beat you anyhow. I'm just kidding.
Oh, maybe.
No. When I see you, I want to play you in at least ping pong, because I've been playing ping pong since I was like 7 years old.
Oh, show off.
Yeah, I consider myself like the Roger Federer of table tennis or ping pong, whatever you want to call it.
It's just small tennis.
It is, and I have one ping pong trophy. That's it. I have one ping pong trophy.
Nice.
But let me tell you, actually, I did a summer internship in Iowa, and when I was working for the USDA. Doing like a summer internship. This is my sophomore year in undergrad. But anyway, they sent us out to Ames, Iowa, and there was a ping pong tournament in Ames. And I was like, how cool would it be if I came in here and like kicked everybody's butt? And I got smoked so badly. Like, I mean, it looked like I had never picked up a ping pong paddle before. And the guy just completely crushed me. It was ridiculous. But I did win the tennis tournament that they had there. Okay, it was like a little Olympics thing that they had. But at any rate, I think it's so cool that you play ping pong and that you shoot pool. And if you ever find yourself in North Carolina, hey, we've got a pool table and a ping pong table at my parents' house, so we can get it on,
Great, yeah. You're on for sure.
Okay. All right. Got myself a little challenge going there. Okay, let's get back on track and focus here. So how did you become interested in veterinary medicine? Like, what was that driving force for you?
I have to say, I consider myself pretty much the cliche. I've wanted to be a vet my entire life. I mean, ever since I was a child, I just knew that I wanted to be a vet. And maybe there were times when I was small and I would consider other things, like I'm going to be a gymnast or a rock star or something. But vet medicine is really where my heart was always at. And my parents have been absolutely amazing, and they've supported my journey every step of the way. They are not veterinarians. No one in my family is veterinarians. My family is very distinguished, though. A lot of them have been doctors and lawyers and won a lot of accolades in education. And so they all know the importance of educating yourself. And so I went into school, and I fortunately found myself doing pretty well in the sciences, and I enjoyed it. So I kept going with that, and everything else just kind of faded away. And my parents, we always had dogs, not cats all the time, but we always had dogs in the house. So I knew, obviously my mom got me a stethoscope when I was a child, and I would be listening to the heartbeats and things like that. So I kind of just always knew. And then the more and more I found out about it, then I started to go to the local clinic, Sherman Hill, and I volunteered there at first, and then I got a job there, and I was working, and I had 3 veterinarians there, and so I was able to learn different veterinary styles and kind of talk to them and have them encourage me. So there really wasn't ever anything to stop me from being a vet. It's just that's what I wanted, that's what I was going to do.
Wow. Wow. That's really awesome. And it sounds like his story is very similar to mine, at least in the fact of you having dogs since the beginning of time, basically, right? And then I
Yes.
actually got my first cat when I was a junior in high school. So we had
Oh.
dogs since the day I was born, and when we finally got our first cat. Do you remember like how old you were when you got your first cat, or?
We kind of rescued all of our cats. So I remember my mom saying, because she unfortunately had a pretty bad experience, a scary experience with cats. And so we used to
Mm.
joke because she would say, there'll never be a cat in my house. And then at one point in time, we had 2 dogs and 4 cats. So clearly things changed, if that proves anything. But yeah, so
It's
I mean,
hilarious.
I was quite young. I mean, I was like a child, probably like, like late elementary school or middle school at least when I had a couple of cats. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm glad you found yourself and your way to veterinary medicine. From what I've learned about you this summer, you're really passionate and things of that nature. Tell our listeners a little bit about your favorite parts of veterinary school. Like, what have you enjoyed the most since being a student at Purdue's College of Veterinary Medicine?
Hmm. It's hard to pick just one thing. I've tried to think about that answer, but I think really what I enjoyed the most about it is that veterinary medicine is its own little world. And once I got
Mhm.
to vet school, I just felt like I was suddenly just part of something. And it was fantastic because, when you're in school, through high school and undergrad and things like that, everything is still very open and you still have, a lot of different choices to make and everything like that. But once you're in vet school, you're enveloped in this world that will be your future, and these people that are around you will be, your future colleagues and your future friends. And you're learning about the future of veterinary medicine, and it just was so cool. It is so cool to be a part of that and to finally be in my niche. I think was my favorite thing, because I've always felt like I've done like a little bit of everything. I'm kind of like a social butterfly, and I'm usually all over the place, but to have this place where I'm doing everything that I love is really it's hard to put into words.
Wow. And I can hear it in your voice that you are really finding a lot of fulfillment and enjoyment, just being a part of the profession, even though you're not a
Hmm.
doctor just yet. You might as well consider it done. You're in vet school, and there's so much more to explore. And I believe that was one of the cool things about my pre-veterinary and veterinary experience is that I actually experienced many different aspects of the profession. So from like
Hmm.
regulatory to pharmaceutical to small animal to food animal to research to international. And I
Wow.
really knew, and academia a little bit too, that I really knew that, what, Quincy, you can always find something to do within the profession. And
Mm,
I believe that you'll probably
so
have
true.
like a similar path of maybe experiencing different things because you have that sort of viewpoint and perspective and vision. Okay, so really enjoyed being sort of immersed in the veterinary profession. Um, as far as vet school is concerned, what would have been some of your biggest challenges, if you don't mind sharing with veterinary?
Hmm.
Like we all know that you can ask any vet student anywhere, like there's going to be some challenge in veterinary school. What have been
Absolutely.
some of your biggest challenges?
Well, I guess it kind of goes along with the favorite part is that because it is such a world of its own, I think I lost myself a little bit in it, and I started to definitely kind of get overwhelmed with things. I think part of it was that while the undergrad that I went to, I said it's a great school, and it is. It was great for a lot of reasons. However, it wasn't really terribly rigorous in the sciences, and so academically, when it came to vet school, I felt like I was just so out of my league, and I hadn't, for some reason, I don't know why, I think I was just so focused on working in a clinic, but I didn't do like boiler vet camp, or I think maybe I tried to apply to one thing over the summer, but it didn't go through. So I didn't have any sort of like vet classes before that or anything, like I didn't take pig classes and farm animal nutrition and things like that. So when I got to vet school and between the first and the second semester together, there were just courses that really felt totally new to me, like histology and neurology and things like that. And I unfortunately realized that my study habits were not were not going to cut it, and that I needed to change. And even who I was going into it, you know, everybody kind of goes in thinking that they've had it pretty good, you know. I mean, especially coming in after senior year, a lot of people had that peak, you know. They had everything they needed in that school, and they had their people, and they had their A pluses and everything like that. And then I came to vet school, and it all kind of just didn't happen the way that I thought it would. And for the first time, I was truly challenged. And not everybody can say that, because some people have gone through challenges before they got to vet school. But for me, it was my first greatest challenge. And it took a while to kind of figure things out. But in the end I did, obviously. But it was hard to feel like I lost myself almost for a little bit. I lost my edge. I lost, you know, how to like live and like talk to people and everything like that. So it did get overwhelming for a little while, I think.
Okay, so it sounds like just that transition from an environment where you had everything, you had your support, you had your friends, you knew the environment, you sort of knew what to expect, to something that's completely different and brand new, in combination with the fact that there were classes that were brand new to you, like histology and things like that maybe that added to sort of the overall academic stress load of veterinary school. And, you know, I can honestly relate and say that, you know, I didn't have necessarily that challenge of not having histology and anatomy and medical terminology, things like that, because I was blessed to go to a really cool school, undergrad, North Carolina A&T State University. They have, especially for an HBCU, historically Black college university, probably one of the most robust and just talented animal science programs that I've come across. And so I had a lot of the production classes and, you know, med term and genetics, and there were even veterinarians who were actually instructing those classes. So they knew what we were going to be facing once we got into veterinary school. Oh. And so I can imagine that if I not have had that I probably would have flunked out of vet school, honestly, because I struggled as it was, you know, like I had those classes. It was still a struggle. But I'm so glad that you have, you know, continued to press forward and persevere. Do you mind just kind of sharing, because there are going to be a lot of pre-veterinary students and maybe even some veterinary students going into their first year, or maybe even second year, who are going to have very similar academic challenges. Were there any things in particular that really helped you to overcome the adversity that you were facing?
Yes, I think that a lot of it just kind of took time, unfortunately, just kind of going through getting through like one day at a time. I'm pretty sure once I started to get in the middle, probably like a few weeks into the semester, and once the exam started, and once I started taking exams and then passing and feeling like I knew the material, just little things like that to, you know, make sure that I knew that I was in the right place and that I can do it. It's just everything together seemed like a lot. And so what I needed was a grounding point, and I've always needed a grounding point. So when I was in undergraduate, I was always part of, and a couple times the president of, the Newman Club on campus, and it was the only Christian club on campus. So my faith has always played a role in my life, huge role. And so I'm specifically Roman Catholic. And so I was kind of used to going to church and having a lot of time to pray. And once I got into first semester, I lost that, and I lost my ability to make time for those kinds of things. And those kinds of things are so important. And I think that whatever it is that you need, whether you need to go play pool, whether you need to go to the gym, whether you need to go for a run or go to a church, everybody needs a grounding point. And so thank God there was a club on campus, specifically in the veterinary school, that's called CVF, which is Christian Veterinary Mission, or CVF, which is Christian Veterinary Fellowship, which is a sub group of Christian Veterinary Mission, which sends out veterinarians to areas in need. And they meet once a week. And so we would have a Bible study once a week. And that was my grounding point. And I started to have something that I could go to every week. And for me, it was a lot of just remembering that as much as I love vet medicine, as much as how strong my passion is for it, I knew that there's more in the world besides the vet school and besides that grade and everything like that. And so I needed to remind myself that I was going to be okay no matter what happened, and that throwing myself at risk of losing myself, throwing myself into the vet school wasn't the way I needed to approach it. I needed to be able to take a step back and kind of take it at my own pace. And once I was able to ground myself, and then I found a church that was near the school, and I started being able to go to mass. So once I found that one thing in my life that could be stable, and that also reminded me that there is, I am a person outside of a vet student. Once I had those things, then I was really able to pull the rest together.
Very cool. Very cool. I love that answer. Not only because I'm a man of faith myself, but I really believe that grounding point is the combination of words that you're using. A grounding point. And I was going to ask you what's a grounding point, but I think you've explained that really well. And for students to find that grounding point and to really stick with that, and you mentioned stability as well, to have something that's really stable, because vet school it's so fast paced oftentimes that you can get swept away, and it's the first day of the semester, and then it seems like the next week it's the last day of the semester. And to have, those weekly meetings with CVF can be that grounding point of coming back to something to sort of bring that time perspective back into play. And not to mention probably the topics that you all cover, and just having a little bit of a support group, I would imagine, as well.
Absolutely.
I remember when I was in vet school at NC State that we did have a pretty robust CVF as well. And great. I didn't go on a weekly basis, but just knowing that it was there was almost just as powerful as actually showing up to those meetings. I think I wasn't a morning student back then, and I think they were meeting at like 7.
I'm never a morning anything.
You know what I'm saying? So I was like, Ash is meeting too early. I have to tell me what happened in the meeting. I'll catch up with y'all a little later on in the afternoon meetings or something.
I get you.
But yeah, it was really cool. But I'm so glad that you shared that, and hopefully, students will really stick with whatever it is that kind of helps them to stay grounded. And because we're all going to have those challenges. I mean, that's just a thing. Okay, so Get MotiVETed, it's all about well-being, and again, so happy to have you as a part of our team this summer.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Can you tell everyone why well-being means so much to you? Like how you found well-being sort of as a thing that you feel is really important, if you will.
I honestly can't see how it's not important. I think maybe that is a question I've told myself, and I think what maybe has changed my mind, I guess, a lot is that I've seen the difference between poor well-being or pseudo well-being, as it is in the university lessons, but between those two things and between true well-being. And I've just seen the peace and the happiness that it brings people, and I can't imagine anyone not wanting that. And so once I talked to these people and I asked them what they were doing, and what I could do, to be like that, and to have that, the kind of energy that's around people who have really true well-being is infectious, and it's something always to strive for. And so, and they would tell me, some of them would say that they meditate, some of them would say that they journal, that they go on hikes, but whatever form it was a form of mindfulness and well-being. And so, I've had a few mentors in my life, and I've also seen when it goes wrong, and I just decided that I don't want that for myself, and I try to help them as much as I can, but there's only so much you can do. So the only thing I can way I can really move forward is just to focus on myself. And so I think well-being just makes people's lives better, and that's why it's so important to me, I guess.
Awesome. I really appreciate that answer, especially because you threw true well-being and pseudo well-being. Being.
You're welcome.
Go ahead and rub my ego just a little bit. I love those definitions, and I didn't make those up. Just based off of my personal life experience in that, and I'll kind of go over the three definitions really quickly. But so true well-being, I define as, and I'm paraphrasing here, but true well-being is something that's deliberate and it's intentional. So you're actually taking actions towards your personal development and your self-care, so that you're basically, I'm not going to say unshakable, but you have a toolbox, you have strategies, you have life principles to fall back on when, not if, when life gets tough and starts, throat chopping you, basically. That hiya, right in the throat. But you have things to sort of fall back on because you have been deliberately and intentionally taking actions towards your well-being, versus pseudo well-being, which I honestly feel that I lived the first maybe 29 or 30 years of my life in pseudo well-being, where it's really just coincidental. People are healthy, you're healthy, the economy is good, it's a beautiful day.
Yes.
You're getting into vet school, you're passing classes aren't that hard, you're winning sports, you got trophies and accolades and titles. And then it kind of goes away, and you realize that, wow, all of that enjoyment, fulfillment, and happiness that I had was really coincidental to the situations, circumstances, and life events just being really peachy, basically. And so you could live a life of pseudo well-being if things never get bad. But if you're in the veterinary profession, we know that, there's going to be euthanasia. There are going to be clients who can't pay. There are going to be student loans, more than likely. There's going to be difficult cases, difficult surgeries, or just difficult people to deal with. Maybe a difficult client or something, I don't know. Or an aggressive cat, aggressive dog, like all these little things. And if you were operating based off of pseudo well-being and you weren't doing anything deliberate or intentional to build a robust toolbox, then maybe you kind of fall by the wayside when those challenges are really piling up on you. But one thing I'm curious to know is, when did you, was well-being a thing for you when you were like a kid or in like high school? Or is it something that you kind of, started grasping? Because you mentioned that, how could you not see the value in well-being? So when did that kind of start for you?
That's a good question. And I don't know if I have a specific timeline for it. I think if I were to think about it, I think the fact that I was very strong in my faith, I think that kind of just led itself into well-being. So I think perhaps maybe, like mindfulness and meditation and journaling weren't things that were on my mind when I was a child. But because I had my faith, I always had something telling me, like, love yourself, be good to others, take care of, your body as a temple and things like that. And so it was always important to me, to be healthy and to be happy, and that God wanted you to be happy and God loves you and everything like that. So, and my family life, I was always surrounded by love. And my mother, if I ever wanted to talk about anything, my mother was always there. And so I think there was always hints of it. As I grew up, I wouldn't have called it well-being probably until, until I learned what the term really meant. In school and undergrad, we would do, they would just call it stress relief. So that's the difference. So I think all the way up to starting vet school, I would just call it stress relief. I would go get a massage because I wanted stress relief. I would go take a walk because I just needed to take a breath. But once I got to vet school, it leveled up. So instead of just becoming stress relief, it became well-being, and it became emotional resiliency. And that's when it really developed.
Okay. That makes perfect and total sense. And I'm very similar, actually, in that the term well-being, to me, guys, before I was 30, meant nothing to me.
Yeah.
It had zero meaning. If somebody asked me like what well-being is, I would have just like, I would have just made up some weird answer.
Right. Yeah.
And had no idea what they were talking about. And definitely true well-being and pseudo well-being certainly weren't considerations back in those days.
Same.
at all. So that's really cool. And then the other thing that you mentioned that I kind of want to touch on is that you made a decision to not suffer from poor well-being. You saw other people sort of going through that. And I think that is so powerful, because oftentimes I believe it is a choice. I call it the well-being choice. You can choose to be well. Even if you have a mental health condition, a clinical mental health condition, there are still things that you can do to choose to be well at the end of the day. And maybe if you have a clinical mental health condition, maybe it's a little bit more complex. Maybe there need to be more, mental health professional involved, and maybe you need a coach and a really robust support system and things of that nature, and maybe even medication. But there's still going to be those other little small choices that you can make towards well-being. So
well said.
Yes. So thank you for sharing that, and I'm glad that you chose. I'm glad you chose.
Me too.
To go right instead of left, basically. Okay, that's really cool.
Nothing against lefties.
Yeah, nothing against lefties, right? Oh my gosh. Okay, so what are some tools or strategies or life principles that you use or live by to maintain your well-being? Like, what are some of the big things that you do that have worked really well for you?
I really love quotes. I think that's one thing that I don't know if I would say I consider myself a person who has like a lot of mantras. I mean, I don't wake up in the morning and look myself in the face and say, I am bold, I am beautiful.
Okay, you're not doing affirmations on a daily basis.
Affirmations, right? That's what I was looking for, right? I think they work for a lot of people, and I do tell myself those things, but mostly I just tell myself those things like in a moment. I don't wake up every day and do it. Right. However, I love quotes, and I think that that's one of the things that social media is amazing about, is that they offer just an unlimited supply of quotes. I mean, everybody has a quote about everything, and the emotion that you're feeling, somebody has also felt it and they've posted a quote about it. And obviously, over the time, there have been many, many leaders who have also said very powerful quotes. And so I'll take a lot of those to heart. I mean, just things like, I can't remember. Wow. See, I can't even remember who said it now, but there is a quote that goes, people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Just things like that. And I'm a big person who I love to word things, and I actually, a lot of my friends, like when they're not sure how to say something, they'll kind of come to me and ask, how would you say this, and kind of just let me kind of roll with that. And so for me, putting my emotions into words has always been a way that just makes me feel better in the end. So I don't journal all the time. I usually would only journal if I was like very worked up over something and I just needed to get it out. But daily journaling does not work well for me. But definitely, I guess just finding either someone, someone who is behind a computer screen and is just saying things that I also relate to, either finding someone, one of my friends or if my family, just someone who understands, what I'm going through, and talking to them about it has been really good. I feel like I've lost sight of the question and I've kept rambling.
No, you're doing good. You're doing good. Yeah, just talking about the different tools or strategies that you use.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think that.
So using. Yeah. So using quotes, also doing something that makes me happy, and that requires sometimes knowing yourself. Sometimes people don't even, for whatever reason, if you don't spend time with yourself, like by yourself, I think it's really important to spend time alone once in a while. And, there's a difference between being alone and being lonely. Being lonely means that you crave being with somebody else and you just can't. Being alone and being independent means that you're choosing the time for yourself. And I think that's one of the most important things. And I am an only child, so it's kind of easier for me to do that. But either way, I would go, sometimes I'll go to like a town festival by myself, or I'll go and I'll just kind of sit by myself, or just sit in, I honestly, sometimes I'll go to the church and I'll pray by myself, but because I know myself, I know the kinds of things that make me happy. And I think I learned that from a YouTube video or something like that. But if you're sad, do whatever you need to do to make yourself happy. Like for some people, that's putting on a full face of makeup just because that makes them happy. For some people, it's going on a walk. It's whatever you need it to be. But spending some time by myself, I think, also helped a lot. And spending time reflecting is really important.
Reflecting too. Okay. That's awesome. And wow, so many things. I love quotes. Journaling. I don't do that so much. Maybe every now and then I've sort of written things out. And when I first got started on my journey, I think I did a little bit of journaling because I have gone back to a notebook that I had written in. And I'm like, wow, I really was kind of journaling. I had some dates and stuff like that too. It was really powerful to look back at those. So it's really like sporadic or erratic for me in terms of my journaling behavior. But I've heard of a lot of people who do that. And so if that works for you, I say go for that. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
And then I've been hearing this one a lot, like what you said about having supportive people, whether it's a person behind a computer screen or whether it's a friend or family member, like having that support group just seems to be a really hot and popular item these days. So it's something that I really do need to do, maybe more like YouTube videos on or something like that. Like if you don't have that support group, some people just don't have it. And if you don't have one, like how do you get one? Maybe you and I can do a piece of later in the year or something like that.
Sure.
That'd be cool.
Sounds good.
And then I love it. It's so simple, but doing things that make you happy. And by that, we don't mean drinking, getting high or doing any other
healthy outlets. Yes. Yeah,
healthy. And you know what healthy is. Like we don't have to sit here and like go over what's healthy, what's not. And I have nothing against if you like to have your beer or your wine or anything like that. There's certainly nothing wrong with that. But you know what healthy is and what healthy isn't. But doing things that make you happy. And you mentioned self-awareness here. And I think that self-awareness is so crucial as it relates to well-being, because
totally agree.
Because what works for Juliana may be a terrible idea for me to do. Like everything is not going to be the same. My wife, for example, so Juliana and I are what you call introverts. We just discussed this right before the podcast. But being around, lots of people and maybe even networking and going and having conversations with people, while we are very capable of doing it and doing it well, it simply drains us. I just got back from, you know what I'm saying? Like I just got back from AVMA and I had a lot of really awesome meetings, did a panel on diversity, and Renee spoke on mindfulness and meditation, but I was exhausted. So for me, I'm much like you, Juliana, in that being by myself, whether it's in my room, in a park, exercising with, my headphones in, like that recharges me. And you literally just empowered me when you talked about being alone and being lonely and how they're not the same. Because sometimes I shame myself. I shame myself for wanting to be by myself because I really enjoy it. And it really does recharge me and energize me. And it gives me time to, as you mentioned, reflect. But sometimes I feel bad about that, man. I'm just like, wow, like maybe I'm weird. You know what I'm saying?
No.
And so for me, I would wake up early in the morning, and I still do. And because that's like the only time, now that I have 2 kids, it's the only time I get time to myself, really. It's like from 4 o'clock until, when everyone wakes up. So for me, that was really, really great. But waking up early for someone else, talking about self-awareness again, could be completely and totally detrimental. So
probably,
you know what I'm saying? Like it could potentially make your well-being worse. So thank you for sharing all that. And you also threw out YouTube, another great one. We're working on the motivational, inspirational, positivity and empowering immersion course right now. That'll be available on GMU coming up soon. And I talk about how powerful, I'm excited about that one. I'll have to let you know when it's out. But you know, YouTube is really powerful. And you just mentioned it off the top of your head when we were talking about tools and things for your well-being. And so it's an amazing resource because, you know, you can find just so much good content and it doesn't really cost you a dime. Like you don't have to go get YouTube Red so you can turn your phone screen off and still listen to the videos and stuff like that. But
yes.
Okay. Very awesome. I really like that. I can definitely relate to all of those. Now, the next question I've got for you is how, okay, so you're about to graduate, you're about to go, and we're not about to graduate now, but within a few years, within the next 4 years, you're going to be graduating from veterinary school. You're going to be going and looking for a job, whether that's, you know, like a small animal practice or whatever. How important is it for you to be in a place where well-being is the cultural norm, essentially? Like how important is that for you and why?
It's very important to me is the short answer to the question. I firmly believe that where graduates go after they have graduated is, I don't like to use the phrase make or break, but it has a huge impact, whether they'll admit it or not, on how they will practice in the future. And for some of them, it will be an experience that they will have to learn from and decide that that's not the environment they want to be in. But for some people, it's going to be the place where they become who they are and they start living their best life. And so wherever I go, I have an interest in shelter medicine. And in shelter medicine is based on a lot of volunteer work. And volunteers, so for example, there's a sanctuary in Utah. It's called Best Friends Animal Sanctuary. And I went there with my aunt one summer to volunteer for a couple of weeks. And that place just made me feel so alive. And every single volunteer there absolutely loved what they did. And it inspired me, and it made me want to be there every single day. And that's the kind of environment that I need. And so when I graduate, considering, you know, there not going to be any more summer breaks and things like that, I mean, I'm really going to have to be very happy where I am, going there day after day after day. And so to have a place that focuses on your well-being, I think is going to be able to allow me that, and I'm going to be able to hopefully grow there. That would be the best thing. And I guess what I think is important is that they need the well-being programs. And sometimes, while it is an active choice, sometimes I think it's kind of like insurance in a way. Like sometimes maybe you don't always need the well-being there, like a counselor, like you don't always need to go to them all the time. But at the times, like you said, like it's not if, it's not if, it's when. At the times as a new grad, when I hit my first roadblock, I need to know that there's going to be a program there and that there's going to be people there who can help me through that, because it is going to happen and I can't do it by myself. And so having that, otherwise, you know, I could start to spiral downwards. So when I hit that first roadblock, having the well-being program set up and knowing that they're robust and that they're accessible and that I feel, you know, open and willing to do them, that will allow me to grow from my challenges and to be the best veterinarian that I can be.
Wow. I mean, just fantastic answer. Fantastic. And first and foremost, you know, for veterinary students, new grads, pre-veterinary students, pre-veterinary students, little kids listen to this podcast.
Yes.
You know, I don't know if you have to be 18 or older to listen to this type of stuff or not, but you know, I don't care what you're
the boss.
I know, man. Okay. So, but you know, I really hope that everyone really hears what you said about in regards to like huge impact. And I just really think that people, like wherever you are, start now. When I listen to Julianna
Definitely.
speak, when I listen to a lot of the other students who we've had on this podcast who really value well-being and who are living lives of true well-being, I will always be there to support them. But I know that even if we never communicate ever again, that they're probably going to be okay, just because they understand and they value well-being and how important and impactful it can be. To my hospital owners, to my practice managers, to the leaders of organizations out there, I really hope, and there's a rewind button on this podcast somewhere. If you didn't hear it, rewind it back and hear what she said when she was talking about best friends. Okay. She's talking about the best friends in the shelter environment that she was at. So generally speaking, when we think about shelter medicine, we're thinking about high stress, people, maybe a high turnover rate, because I'm sure it depends on whether it's a no kill versus a high volume kill shelter and things like that. But what Julianna said was that, it was an environment that she wanted to go to because things were so positive. It was an environment that people in general wanted to be around. And if you are a hospital manager or practice owner or whatever, and you're having trouble keeping personnel, if you're having trouble just with, the overall morale of the organization, ask yourself, how deliberate are our well-being efforts? And by well-being efforts, we are not talking about having health insurance for your team. We are not talking about providing paid CE for your technicians and your veterinarians. That is not what we mean when we're talking about well-being program. If you want more information on that, certainly get MotiVETed. We do offer like well-being programs, but this is by no means like us pitching. There's no bias here. I don't care whether you use our stuff or not. Find some organization who can provide a well-being program to build a well-being culture for your organization. Whether it's ours or not is irrelevant to me, but do something. And we're also not talking about EAPs, employee assistance programs, where it's just kind of like a checkbox thing. It needs to be something where you see the value, there's value, and you guys talk about it all the time. As frequently as you talk about, are your medical standards, and maybe if you're rounding, doing things like that, someone within that organization, hopefully the leader, needs to value well-being and sort of see that, because it'll create employees, it'll create a staff where it's just like Julianna said. I could almost see her eyes lighting up about when she was talking about best friends, and she has no reason.
They were.
You know what I'm saying? She just has no reason to make that up. But that's how you create a team who is engaged and who really wants to come in by caring about their well-being and what's best for them. So definitely thank you for sharing all of that information. And that it's always really refreshing to hear something like that. Okay. All right. So we're kind of switching gears just a little bit here. So Julianna is one of our student representatives for this summer. And a part of their project, we had 9 students this year who are just really dedicated to well-being. They wanted to learn more about well-being, and they also wanted to learn a little bit about business and sales and marketing and things like that. But a part of their, a part of their sort of duties, if you will, was to build relationships with different hospitals. And Julianna has been crushing it, I must say, just in terms of being dedicated to getting a little bit uncomfortable and reaching out to organizations. Julianna, can you just tell us like a little bit about, you don't have to go into too much detail, but just tell us a little bit about what some of the challenges and what some of the fulfilling parts of what you've been doing this summer have been, if you don't mind.
Sure. challenges, I think the first challenge that just about everybody who did the program faced is just getting started. It's usually always the biggest. You have to go over a little bump first. You have to say, okay, like I am going to start the calls. The number is being dialed. The phone's ringing. Here we go. So starting that. And then getting my list together of the hospitals I was going to call, and kind of the nervousness of preparing for my first conversation I've been nervous plenty of times in my life, and I will be nervous plenty more. And so going through the nerves was definitely something that was a challenge at first. But fortunately, and this is, I swear, one of my favorite things about veterinary medicine is that it is so collaborative. And there's always exceptions, but that's why part of the reason I chose vet med instead of like maybe human med, or definitely compared to law school, is it's so collaborative and everybody's in it for the same reason, because they love animals and they want to help everybody help animals. And so everybody that I called, thankfully, was so receptive to me. I just told them that I was a vet student and I wanted to get to know them and their hospital and their support staff, the veterinarians, just everybody and everything. And they all invited me, almost all of them, invited me for a visit. And after that visit, I even got, they said, come back anytime. And so it was great to kind of, again, fit myself into my niche, and that was, of the veterinary community, and to be, in the vet hospital where I love. And overall, I think it's something that I'm sure I would have tried maybe to call a hospital or two while I was home, but if it was not for this internship, I don't think I would have been so bold as to try to, I wouldn't have goals set for myself, because I don't tend to do that terribly naturally. And so with the goal of building a network with 10 hospitals, it really pushed me. And, I was fortunate that I got really good results, but I think I got good results because of who I am, and because they could see what I hope would be the very positive energy, that was coming from me. And I believe that when you have positive energy, you tend to get positive energy in return. So that was kind of a long-winded answer to the question, but so it's been a great experience. There weren't too many challenges after that. I know this sounds silly, but like only one of my challenges was just kind of making time for the visits and for the emails and everything like that, because it's my summer and I was tempted to just be like, I don't want to do anything. So email responses are just the bane of my existence. I'm terrible at responding to emails. And so, a little challenge there. But again, I mean, once I met the veterinarians, I didn't really feel a challenge in talking to them. They were all pretty willing to listen to me, and that meant a lot.
Wow, that is so awesome to hear, and going in creating this program, like I really knew that it was going to be uncomfortable for most of the students, all of the students. I just wouldn't become uncomfortable.
Right.
If you weren't uncomfortable at least a little bit, then you are weird. Yeah. I haven't met, and I have met so many people who are just, some of the best sort of business people and salespeople in the world. And, picking up the phone and calling a hospital and trying to build that relationship, it's just not easy, especially when, hospitals are busy. Like you're in the profession, that they probably got things going on, and in order for them to fit you into their schedule, it's, maybe a little bit of an inconvenience for them, but having that purpose and the vision behind the mission of really getting on the ground, building these relationships so that we can be a support to the people who need it the most and who may otherwise not ever get some of this stuff. It's so true. That's what really drives me. And you've got to think about the 10 hospitals that you contacted and sort of form those relationships with. If not you, Julianna, who? And, and
so right.
And that was the other part of having 9 students, and we're looking to double that up to at least 20 next summer, because the more people we have on the ground who are just passionate about well-being and who are just really just taking a temperature check and reaching into these hospitals and saying, hey, I know you guys are busy and you're probably stressed out too, just because we know that. But hey, we're here. We're here. And, if you don't want to use us, there are other people who are there and out there. And these are the free resources. These are the paid resources. These are the, you can go here to get this, go here to get that, just so that they know that they have a support and they can continually focus on being the best veterinary professionals that they can be and providing the best sort of, service to the clients and best care to the pets, and know that, someone is out there looking out for their well-being, even if they aren't doing it for themselves, that, that we're here and that they can call Julianna. And I really hope that you get some calls and get some emails from some of the hospitals. And I know you plan on keeping in contact with them. But it really makes it real, the impact that you're going to have on their own, potentially have on people's lives, when someone reaches out to you and says, hey, I remember you coming by, and this is the challenge that I'm having. What do you think about that? Or do you have any advice? The times that's happened for myself, for Renee, and for other people on our team has just really made every bit of discomfort completely worthwhile. Just for that one moment, that one phone call, that one email, that one conversation where you make a difference in someone's life makes it all the worthwhile. So thanks again for doing all this for us, man. I was like, oh, Julianna's a rock star.
Thanks.
Okay. So we're just about out of time here. And this has been a very fun conversation. I've learned a lot about you. I learned that I have to spank you in ping pong at some point. So I'm definitely to that.
You can try, but I don't think so.
I'll beat you left-handed.
Oh, watch, he's now a lefty. That's why he's saying that.
No, I'm definitely not a southpaw. I'm definitely right-handed. But I did learn how to play with my left hand, just because I got so tired of beating people with my right hand.
Stop. Okay, I have to see this for myself now. He's talking too much. I have to see this.
I have a YouTube video of me playing my brother. I'm going to send it to you when we get done with this podcast, okay? I'm going to send it.
Perfect. Video analysis. I'll have you figured out by the time I get to North Carolina.
Yes, remind me. Okay. All right. So the last thing, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we wrap up? I mean, you've already shared like so many words of wisdom, but can you share a special message of encouragement, hope, positivity for the future of our profession? Like, give them your best, you're so wide.
That sounds like a challenge. I've thought about this, and I think that what I've come to realize is that no matter how perfectly I try to word things, I think that I can't control how the audience is going to interpret what I say, because everybody's going to hear it with their own bias and their own feelings. And so it's hard for me to give any advice like that. I have a little sibling in Purdue. At Purdue, they do a Big Sib, Little Sib program. Big Sib, Little Sib program. And she's asked me advice, and I'm just like, I want to tell you so much, but I'm going to overwhelm you if I do that. So basically, a few things. Definitely to be yourself. I think that's one of the most important things. Just stay true and stay genuine. I mean, every vet professional, no matter in which way you're part of the community, knows that genuineness is just something that's sorely missed in the community. And that's why I love animals, because they're genuine. I think that's why most people love animals, because they're genuine. So if you see it in the animals, try to bring that to the human world too, and just be as genuine as possible. Support the people that support you. I think that's a huge thing. So my parents, like I've said, have supported me in every way that they can. And my mother is absolutely my best friend, and she has been with me every step of the way. She's part of the reason why I want to be a veterinarian, and I want to, give back to the community as well. And so whoever is supporting you in your life, just make sure that you recognize that you recognize them for what they're doing, because sometimes it's not easy to, some people can barely handle themselves, much less try to support, another person's dreams. So really make sure that they feel appreciated for every little bit that they do for you. And then the last thing, I kind of wrote this out, and I'll try to say it quickly in case we're on kind of like a time crunch, but I wrote down that surviving is not the same thing as living. Surviving is a law of actions. So surviving says that if I do this, then I'll get through the next 10 minutes. If I do this and this, I'll get through the next day. If I do this, this, and this, I'll get through the next 3 years. But living is a feeling, and it means to enjoy all the moments. So you can find peace in the bad moments and joy in the good ones. And it's not, related to X, Y, and Z. And so I would challenge every person, and I challenge myself, to break free from the monotony of the quote unquote survival mode, and realize that while sometimes it's necessary, it's not meant to last forever, and recognize when it's starting to not be in your best interest anymore. And so you're going to be okay, whatever you go through, but always remember that you can be so much more than just okay. And that well-being and mindfulness and self-care is going to enrich your life in the best possible way. And take it from me, and take it from anybody else who has achieved true well-being, that once you catch that feeling, you're never going to want to let it go. And that's what keeps people motivated.
Wow. I mean, speechless over.
How was that for a finale?
Oh my God, that was fantastic, dude. I'm giving a talk at Tuskegee on Saturday. You want to come down here and do that for me? Because
sure.
that was phenomenal.
Thank you.
Wow. God, yes, I'm speechless. So the first thing, be genuine, be yourself. And I'm going to add to that you are enough. Like whoever you are.
Yes.
Whatever conditions you have, whatever conditions, circumstances, life events have occurred for you that you may be experiencing right now, I did so that you are enough. You can be yourself. Yourself is enough. And then the second one I really love. And it's almost like that law of reciprocity where do unto others, you should have them do unto you. If you're continually supporting other people, especially the ones who've already supported you, then you will always have a support group. You will always have people to reach out to you in your time of need, and that you can reach out to in your time of need. So that one's just so powerful. Be grateful for them. Support them as well. And that's just not something that I believe that we as human beings do enough of. If you get onto any social media platform, you will see people, sort of ragging on each other, whether it's in the political world, whether it's in their personal life, professional life. And then,
well said.
The last thing I believe is probably the most powerful. And people just could not understand, Julianna, why I walked away from a $135,000 job offer, and why my wife walked away from being chief of staff and getting paid six figures to basically go down to much less. Mm-hmm. But we were surviving at those salary levels. We just weren't living. And, and I believe that that's probably one of the worst things that a person can do, is to go through this amazing life, just surviving, man, instead of living. And, Renee says, go from surviving to thriving. I don't care who you are. I know of people who have gone through some major adversity, and they live it up every single day. They see life as heaven on earth. They see earth in and of itself as heaven, or just this place of awesomeness, if that's what you're looking for. And probably the most powerful thing you said, Julianna, is that once you find that life of true well-being, that you'll never want to go back. And not only will you never want to go back, I'm not even sure it's possible to go back to things used to be.
You're right.
Because true well-being is not something that is temporary, it's eternal. Once you've got it, and he said facts, and once you truly got it.
I showed my generation right there.
Seriously, man. I was trying to be serious, Julianna, and then you came up with
sorry.
facts and laugh, man. Okay, I got it.
You were doing so well.
I'm done. This has been so much fun. I'm really, gosh, man, like, we're coming up on the end of our summer program. It's been so much fun. hanging out with you guys, doing the conference calls. It's been a lot of work, me keeping up with, I think I overslept.
I'm sure.
And came into one conference call 30 minutes late because for whatever reason, good people, the students wanted to have 9:30 p.m.
Not much.
Machel, thanks.
You're right.
Machel.
You're right. Just kidding. We all agreed. We were all on that team.
it was totally, it was an amazing experience. So thank you so much for doing this podcast recording. I know you were probably uncertain about how it would go and things, but it's a lot of fun. And I told you would do great. And so thank you for your time. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your words of wisdom. And with that being said, to all the listeners, if there's anything that we can do for you at Get MotiVEted, you know where to find us. This does conclude this episode of Exploratory with Julianna. And I look forward to seeing you guys on the next one. Thank you, Julianna.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.